Good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. Last week, we started with Law of Destruction, chapter 6 of book 3. We covered the first two questions. So I'm going to ask Philip to read the first three questions so we catch up with the first two that we studied last week, and then we stop there, okay? So start from 728, Philip, please.
Necessary versus abusive destruction, 728. Is destruction a law of nature? Everything must be destroyed so that it may be renewed. What you call destruction is only a transformation to renew and improve living beings. So the instinct of destruction was given to living beings for providential purposes. God's creatures are instruments used to accomplish divine plans. Living beings destroy each other for food, and this maintains a natural balance of reproduction, which could otherwise become excessive. Also, it utilizes the materials of their external envelopes. However, only this envelope is destroyed, which is only an accessory and not the essential part of a thinking being. The essential part is the intelligent principle, which is indestructible and developed over the course of many metamorphoses. 728. If destruction is necessary for the regeneration of beings, why does nature surround them with the means of self-preservation and conservation? So that their destruction only happens at the right time. Premature destruction delays the development of the intellectual principle. This is why God has given each being the desire to live and reproduce. 730. Since death leads to a better life, delivers us from the difficulties and suffering of our present existence, and we should anticipate it rather than fear it, why do human beings have an instinctive fear of death? We have said that humans should try to prolong their lives to accomplish their tasks. This is why God has given them the instinct of self-preservation. This instinct sustains them through all their trials, without which they would often succumb to discouragement. The inner voice telling them to prevent death also tells them that they may still do more for their advancement. Every danger that threatens them is a warning to profit from the relief God grants them. As humans are ingrates, they are more likely to thank their stars than their creator.
So I think, we started last week talking about law of destruction. The first thing that we have to try to get rid is the idea of destruction being negative. For us, the first thing that comes to our minds when we talk about destruction is the negative aspect of it, right? And not the renewal aspect. Everything in the universe evolves, right? Planets, solar systems, galaxies, they are created and they are destroyed in time, right? So if it is natural, we shouldn't see as negative, right? Is certain aspects of destruction that are caused by our imprudence or our carelessness, and destructions that affect us personally cause us pain, suffering, and difficulties. So because we see those happening all the time, we have this concept of destruction being a negative thing. But we have to start reflecting on also the positive aspects of it, right? To better understand. It's not to be happy with the destruction. That's not the idea. It's just to understand the full concept of it, right? That destruction is something that is necessary. It's not positive or negative. It's necessary. Elmo gave a very good example, right, of last week of a couple that has a house, and they were happy with the house, and then they have kids, and they have to rebuild the house, to build another part, another room. So you have to destroy it to rebuild it. And is it negative that you are destroying the house? No, it's not, right? It's positive. You are improving. So for you to improve, sometimes you have to destroy. So, but you don't see it as negative. So we need to try to absorb this concept of destruction being a necessity, a part of our evolutionary path. Our physical body, which is just an instrument we use in this existence, right? Is going to die, the physical body. We, the spirit, we are eternal. We don't die. We continue living without the physical body, right? So if we try to put that in this objective thought process, it makes it easier for us to grasp the concepts of destruction in it's not positive or negative, neutral, right? As a necessity, as something that happens, and we have to live with it, right? It's necessary for some things. Again, there are many destructions that are not necessary, and we are going to address a lot of those here, right? That are abuses that we cause, or that indirectly we cause directly, indirectly, and that's the problem that we can create. But in theory, destruction is a natural law. If it's a natural law, and all the natural laws are perfect, so the law of destruction is a perfect law, right? When we go down the details is when we can have some problems, right? Now, in terms of us here, right? Incarnated beings. That's the question 730. So if we know that the eternal life, the good part of the life is there in the spiritual world, that here is the trial and atonement, and death frees us from these struggles of the physical life, why do we have the instinct of preservation? Why we have the fear of death? Well, fear of death is basically the fear of the unknown, right? Because we know, even as spiritists, we know that our life continues, we know we will continue, but we don't know where we're going. So that causes fear, which is natural. But it's important here, the Spirit tells us that God gives us the instinct of self-preservation. Why? Because the life here in the physical plane, while we are incarnated, is very important. It's important for our progress. And if we didn't care about it, we would die, the physical body would die very soon, and we will go back to the spiritual world because we wouldn't take care of it. So we need to have this sense of self-preservation at our stage of evolution. And animals have also, right? Plants have also, right? Plants defend themselves. So this is instinctive because it helps, as they say here, it helps the intelligent principle evolve, right? We spend more time here. We have an opportunity to learn more from our time spent here and continue evolving morally and intellectually. But the thing is, understanding that it's a process, that the destruction will happen for us, for our physical body, and for things around us. And the destruction that is material, that belongs to the physical world, is something that we have to live with. Of course, depending on the type of destruction, can cause a lot of trouble for us, but the eternal spirit is indestructible. And that's what really matters in the end, right? We, the spirit, are eternal. Everything else around us is temporary. Even the whole planet is temporary, right? We know that the planet is going to extinguish in 3-5 billion years. They say nowadays that the sun is going to finish its life before Earth ceases to exist. So the end of the sun is what's going to cause the planet to end. But again, we talked a lot of times. We talk about we are destroying Earth, right? And we discussed that, right? We are eternal spirits. So if we destroy Earth, we go to a different planet with a responsibility of having destroyed a planet. So we will be carrying this karma or atonement with us, but we cannot destroy the spirit. The spirit is eternal. Okay, so everything that we go through here, our instinct of self-preservation helps us survive, learn, and continue on. Okay. Yes, Danny.
It came to my mind now passages of a few books from André Luiz when he describes they are traveling through like getting out of Nosso Solar and going to other places, and they got really worried about being attacked from groups that were very like violent or negative. So you made a comment, like you just said, the spirit is indestructible, right? So how maybe I have to reread those books, but how do they describe? I don't think they describe any attack from those groups because they managed to shine like a light, and then they can see them or disguise, or they get sort of like they can see they passing through because it's a different dimension. So why would they be so scared if they could not be destroyed?
Yeah, if you remember the book of the Messengers, where they spend 2/3 of the book in a spiritual colony when they are coming to Earth, right? One of the first chapters that they are there, the colony is attacked, and they put the defenses, and it's very scary attack by the spirits. But again, it's a natural reaction of fear of of suffering, right? Because you don't know what are the consequences of spirits attacking you, right? Or how, if you don't know how to defend yourself, you are not sure how you are going to defend yourself. Of course, these more evolved spirits, they have the ability through their superiority to defend themselves against these attacks. But it's not the fear of death in that case. It's the fear of suffering, right? We all fear suffering. I remember in the book Workers of Eternal Life, when they are in this transitory house of assistance, and in one of the first excursions that they go outside with Zenobia, who is the responsible for the institution, they go to some caves, and they reach to a certain cave that Zenobia says, "From here, I go by myself. You cannot go with me because you are not ready to deal with what I'm going to find there," right? So if they are eternal spirits, if they, they're not going to be destroyed because no spirit cannot be destroyed. Why is she telling them that? Because remember, our mind creates the environment that we live in, right? So you go to a place like that and you see things that you are not ready to to deal with, they will stay in your mind, and if you don't know how to process it, they are going to cause you suffering, right? So it's the combination of unknown, the fear of the unknown plus suffering, fear of suffering that causes them to fear these situations in the spiritual world. It's not fear of death like we have here, because they know that they cannot be destroyed. But the fact that you cannot be destroyed doesn't mean that you are not going to be affected by situations, images, and things that can cause you pain, suffering, right? That you are not prepared to deal with yet. In that case of André Luiz and the companions at the time, so they stayed outside. So I think that's basically what is the fear there on the other side. Okay. Okay.
731.
Yes.
Why has nature provided agents of destruction alongside the means of self-preservation? The disease and the remedy go hand in hand. As we have already told you, this is done to maintain equilibrium and serve as a counterbalance.
You know, I think here Kardec is trying to ask, do we really need destruction? Is it this necessary, right? Why is law of destruction one of the natural laws? So all the questions are related to this. Why nature provided agents of destruction alongside the means of self-preservation, right? And the spirits are trying to say it's the equilibrium, it's to maintain equilibrium, right? So there has to be a destruction for renewal to happen, right? If we go back to the dinosaurs, right? The dinosaurs were destroyed, according to what science tells us, by a comet, right? They hit Earth and caused the death of mostly all living beings. Well, if dinosaurs were not destroyed, humankind could not exist. We cannot live here with dinosaurs, right? Because it's not, we can, despite the Jurassic Park movies, we cannot live in the same place as dinosaurs because it's too different. They're too big and too, you know, all the things that they need to live wouldn't be possible. So they had to be destroyed, right? That's how evolution happens, right? You sometimes, and the more primitive the world is, the more violent is the destruction. If you study Earth in the beginning, right? You study the evolution of Earth, and we had with Giulio Padovan very good lessons on the evolution of the planet. The destructions of the planet in the beginning were very violent, right? You had the Ice Age, and then the warm of the planet, and then the Ice Age were much more violent destructions of things to start anew, to renew. As we evolve, the destructions become less and less aggressive and more controllable in the sense of allowing civilization or Earth as it exists, and we're talking about Earth to exist the way it is. We continue to have earthquakes and all these things that are part of the planet, but we are learning more and more how to defend ourselves against these natural calamities, to minimize the damage, to minimize our damage, and to protect ourselves. So we are evolving together with Earth. And the next question actually addresses the destruction in different worlds, right? And the spirits talk about it. Philip, 732.
Is destruction necessary in all worlds? It is proportionate to the material state of each world. In worlds of higher physical and moral purity, it is no longer needed. In worlds more advanced than yours, the conditions of existence are completely different.
So here, what the spirits are telling us that the more we evolve, the less we are going to have the destruction as we understand today. The conditions of existence are completely different. So the destruction will be, let's say, it won't be a negative thing, right? In the sense that we think today, but it will be just a renewal, right? It will be a change in conditions that we may not even call destruction. We may use other words to define it. But it happens as we evolve, as the world evolves, and we evolve together with it, right? With the technology that we have today, we can already control some of the issues that happen in nature, right? We can minimize, we can predict, we can protect ourselves very, very basically, right? Not much. But if you think that now you can imagine in 150 years, because we don't have much time in science advance, imagine in 500 years from now, in 1,000 years from now, we'll have much more resources allowing us to control and even maybe to, think of earthquakes, right? We have no control of earthquakes. They happen. There are movements of the tectonic plates. Thank you. Tectonic plates. Can't we one day think that we may find a way to prevent this tectonic plates to move? Maybe, right? In 1,000 years from now or 500 years from now, we can advance science enough to prevent them from happening or to adjust the consequences, right?
Adjusting the buildings, especially California, Japan.
Yes.
They are building buildings that can handle that.
Yeah, that's the technology, advancing technology, right? In defending ourselves. Yes. You see an earthquake in Japan of the same magnitude of an earthquake in the third world country. In Japan, you have 20 people dying. In the third world country, you have thousands of people dying because Japan has developed ways to protect themselves, but they cannot prevent earthquakes yet, right? So, but can't we think of 500 years from now a way of preventing earthquakes? Maybe, right? Why not, right? So as we evolve, and if we can control that, we can control other things, right? Nowadays we're, here in the US, we deal with the hurricanes, right? They are already talking about ways to maybe control hurricanes, right? They are studying ways how to prevent. We're far from finding a solution, but eventually we'll find, right?
Is that a good thing?
That's another question, right? Because changing the atmosphere causes consequences and creates other problems that we have to deal with. So, but it's all part of us evolving, right?
They also have these things that total clouds in the sky and it makes it rain. Like last year, Dubai was raining.
Yeah. Again, if we can cause rain in the desert and help agriculture, why not, right? If anything that helps humankind to evolve.
But wouldn't that be affecting the natural law?
Well, not the natural law, right? Because
if it's meant to be a desert,
it's why it's meant to be a desert. It wasn't a desert a million years ago, right? It was a tropical forest a million years ago. So why it has to be a desert? So why it has to continue being a desert? Again, we don't have the knowledge, and every time we change one thing, we affect other things, right? So we will have to learn how to deal with the consequence. We're talking a lot about climate change and the deniers and the ones that believe, those that don't believe. Why? Because we're still dealing with the unknown factors. We don't know how things are, what is happening with everything we are doing, right? But we are learning more and more, right? I remember when I was young, they were saying that we were going to destroy the ozone layer because of all the gases we're sending in the atmosphere. Nowadays, we're talking a little less about destroying the ozone layer because we took care of it in a sense. So this alerts, you cannot say, for us human beings, we need to be pushed, right? You cannot say, oh, well, if you continue doing that, there's a small risk of affecting the ozone layer. Nobody's going to do anything. If you shout to the roofs, you're destroying the ozone layer, even if it's not completely true. People pay attention and start working on that, right? So that's unfortunately at our level of evolution. What I always say, we're lazy. We need to be pushed. We need to be challenged. So these things are challenges that makes us move forward, to study, to research, and to progress. And again, destruction at this stage of our evolution is necessary. At the level that we are seeing, yes, at the level we are seeing now, it's going to change, but how, we don't know yet. Yeah. Okay.
733.
Yep.
Will destruction always be necessary for human beings on Earth? The need for destruction decreases in humans as their spirits obtain control over matter. This is why intellectual and moral development is always accompanied by an aversion to destruction.
Yeah, here we're talking, right, as we evolve spiritually, morally, and intellectually, and we become more spiritualized, we're going to better understand destruction, right? We are going to accept it as a necessity of a way of renewal, right? We struggle with destruction at this stage because, of course, right, most of the destructions that happens around us, they carry negative effects on us, right? There are necessary destructions that we already understand. What I said about the need, to build a better house, you destroy your old house. So it's a necessary destruction, you're happy with it. But most of the destructions, the accidents, the natural calamities, they cause a lot of suffering, right? But as we evolve and we learn more, first about our spiritual nature and about the necessity of them, in terms of not affecting or affecting less our way of living, it's going to be less and less challenging for us, right? It's necessary. We're still far away from when it's going to become a part of a natural process, and we are not going to use the word destruction anymore. But it will take, some many years, centuries, millennia maybe, but it's going to get there. Now, let's talk about destroying other living beings.
734. Do humans currently have an unlimited right to destroy animals? This right is limited to providing for their food and safety. No form of abuse can be considered a right.
Okay. No abuse is right? Destroying animals in the sense that they say here, right? So killing animals for our own survival is something that we have been doing since primitive times, right? It's something that has been part of our culture. The concept of not eating animals is something new. And again, if you say 200 years, it's new, right? Because we've been here for a good 50, Homo sapiens sapiens is 50,000 or 20,000 years, right? So 200 years is nothing, right? If you talk about the first ones talking about not eating animals, it's something very recent. And we still are learning how to live without eating animals. But let's not think about us, let's think about nature, right? Animals feed themselves of other animals. If humans were not present, nature would take care of itself, right? Because the creation is perfect, right? And animals only kill other animals to survive or to defend themselves, right? But basically to survive. So it's not that a lion that ate a gazelle is going to kill another gazelle thinking about the next day. They're not. The next day when they're hungry, they're going to hunt for another gazelle. So nature preserves its balance. We humans that destabilize the nature, right? And in terms of animals, we create imbalances also, right? Because we produce too many animals for consumption. We end up eliminating animals that are important for the balance of nature. But at this stage, right, we need to find balance. So any abuse is wrong, right? So killing animals for the sake of killing animals, it's an abuse. Killing animals out of necessity, being for food or being for to preserve the balance, because with this with the progress nowadays, sometimes we bring animals from one place to another and create problems because they don't have natural predators, so they proliferate and it creates problems in that region. So we have to eliminate part of them. So, and again, animals are spiritual principle, right? That are evolving. So we're not killing any spiritual principle. We're just killing the physical aspects of it, right? It's the same thing as us physical body dies and we spirit continue. So we have to understand this to try to find balance in addressing the issue, right? Of course, there are those that nowadays defend not killing any animal at all, right? And they are right, but maybe 500, 1,000, 2,000 years too early, right? Because if we stop killing all animals from one day to another, we would create such a chaos on Earth that we wouldn't survive probably. Earth will not survive. So we need to find balance. What is the right balance? We haven't found yet, and we are still trying to learn. But if we remove humans from nature, nature takes care of itself, right? And when one animal kills another to survive, it's just nature. And we are not going to kill our lions because they are killing all the gazelles, right? And so on and so forth. Animals that eat plants, right? Plants are living beings. So if you go to become too radical, you're stopping animals from eating plants. In the end, you're going to destroy the planet, right? So we need to understand the concept to find balance of our necessities and needs that we have as human beings to preserve the planet in a positive and optimal way for us to continue living here, and for us, when we come back in the next reincarnation, to find a better place for us. Okay?
7:30.
Yeah,
Me?
yes, go ahead.
7:35. Should we think of destruction that goes beyond the limits of needs and safety, such as hunting, when its sole purpose is to kill merely for sport? It is a predominance of brutality over the spiritual nature. Any destruction that goes beyond the limits of your needs is a violation of God's law. Animals only kill based on necessity, but human beings destroy without cause despite having free will. They must account for abusing the freedom granted to them when they yield to inferior instincts from which they should be free.
Again, killing for sport, right? The spirits are very clear here, right? It's predominance of brutality, instinct over spiritual nature, right? But, you know, if you want to go to the extreme here, when you kill a cockroach that is in your house, why you are doing that, right?
I was just thinking that because I used to kill cockroaches.
So, you know, but again, for things that cause harm to our places of living, we have to destroy them, right? Because we have to preserve ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Between me and the fly, sorry.
yeah, but you know, you see where we need to find balance, right? But if you go out to hunt an animal just for the sake of hunting, it's instinctive brutality over spiritual nature, right? But it is something that is done throughout the world, right? People hunt everywhere. The spirits compare here. Animals only kill based on necessity, right? We discuss what we discussed before. Human beings destroy without cause, just for fun, right? And you see that from early age in kids that like to kill living animals just for fun, right? It is our inferior nature, our inferior instincts prevailing over our evolutionary path as spirit. So we are going to be responsible. Again, we are responsible for the mistakes we make in our evolutionary path, and we are going to be responsible if we spend our life killing animals because for fun, we are going to be responsible for that, right? But again, with reason, right? Because we are not at the stage that we can preserve all animals around us, you know, the ones that cause diseases and causes, yeah, you know, we would talk about experiments done in animals in labs, something that is discussed a lot, right? In theory, not in practical terms, I'm not going to all go into the details, but in theory, whatever helps us human beings find better defenses for better improvements for our health. If testing in animals is the only way we can do it nowadays, it is the meaning we have to help ourselves. Can we find a better way? We should try to find a better way, not to sacrifice animals, but between diseases that are going to contaminate many people and trying with animals to prevent these diseases from happening at this stage of evolution, maybe, I'm not going to say that it is or not it is, I'm not going to defend here, but just saying, we need to find balance in all things, right? To find a way that because the final objective is for us, incarnated spirits, to progress. And to progress, we need to preserve our physical bodies in the best way possible. To preserve our physical bodies, because the longer we stay here, the more we are going to learn and evolve morally, intellectually, most of the cases. So all this progress that is accompanied by destruction needs to be balanced.
It's all interconnected.
Yes, and needs to be balanced, and we cannot be the same way we cannot hunt animals for sport. We cannot prevent the killing of all animals in the world because we don't want to kill animals. The extremes are never the right path, right? The right path is a balance, and finding a balance. And again, we don't know the balance. We need to try to find the balance, but it is the balance. Yeah. Okay. Again, there is the other extreme, right? The last one is the other extreme.
736.
Yeah.
Do people who are excessively conscientious in regard to killing animals earn some sort of special merit? While the sentiment in itself is praiseworthy, it turns into an abuse when excessive. Furthermore, other types of abuses offset its merit. They feel a superstitious fear rather than true gentleness.
Okay, so here what Kardec is asking on this, we were talking about those places that consider animals sacred and don't kill animals because they are sacred, right? The spirits are very clear here. While the sentiment in itself is praiseworthy, right? It turns into an abuse when excessive. Again, like everything, right? So you have someone that is dying of hunger, but you cannot kill an animal to eat because it's sacred animal. Doesn't really make sense, right? It's not logic, right? So that's what the spirits are saying. They feel a superstitious fear rather than true gentleness. So yes, when we can preserve animals, we should. Yes, when we can take good care of them, we should. That's the objective. But we cannot become fanatics, right? So these religions that prevent us from killing animals because they are sacred, it's a misconception of the understanding of us as eternal spirits. But again, we respect all the beliefs, all the religions. So we're just question, what the spirits are saying here. Is it superstition or is true gentleness? Because if it's true gentleness, then it's right. There's nothing wrong with it. But if it's superstitious, right? You don't kill. You don't know why you don't kill. You don't kill because someone told you that it's a sin, or it goes against God or against. Then it becomes dogmas, and in Spiritism we learn that there are no dogmas, right? We need to have explanations if it makes sense. For instance, the Jewish people not eating pork, right? From the time of Moses, because pork was a source of diseases at that time, and Moses knew it was dangerous. So he made it a sin, right? And it carries until today. We respect it, but the reason behind it, it's because at that time was very dangerous. But nowadays, does it make sense? It's a belief. It's not a reasonable. It's not a logical thing, right? And same thing with India and cows, right? And it's also a belief. It's a superstition, a belief, or a dogma. We need to find balance always. That's the important thing.
Christians don't eat meat on Good Friday.
Yeah, and again, we respect all the beliefs. If you do it because it's really what you want to do, that's fine. If you believe in that, but we have to be careful with abuses always, right?
Eating meat on Good Friday, it's like excessive. It's not like they do it every Friday, right?
And again, if you analyze what is the difference, right? Eating on a Monday or on a Friday or to God doesn't make any difference. God's law is perfect. Doesn't make any difference if you do or if you don't to God, right? God doesn't condemn anyone. It's the natural laws are what they are, right? So it is a personal choice that we have to respect. Because for some people, if it's important, if it helps them grow spiritually, fine, perfect, right? Anything that helps us grow spiritually, right? It's right. But anything that we do out of not understanding and don't pay attention, what's the use of it, right? Like, doing long prayers when you are thinking about your dinner or your football game. It's not an effective prayer, right? Prayer, a 1 minute prayer that you are really focused and elevating your vibrations, it's much more relevant than a 10-minute prayer when you're not paying attention to what you're saying, right? Okay. Okay, so destructive scourges. We have time for a couple of those.
737. What is God's purpose in inflicting destructive scourges upon humankind? To make human beings advance more quickly. As we have already stated, destruction is necessary for the moral regeneration of spirits who move one step closer to perfection in each new existence. To appreciate the results, we must consider the purpose or the end. If you only judge them from your personal point of view, they appear to be plagues because of the harm they cause you. Such events are often needed to spur faster development and achieve in only a few years what would otherwise have taken centuries to accomplish.
So every time I come to this question, I talk about the same thing, the Black Plague in Europe, right? It killed half or 2/3 of the population. It ended the feudal system and started Renaissance, right? So what was the purpose? Europe was stuck, civilization was stuck for almost 1,000 years in it is called the Dark Ages. It's not really the Dark Ages because there was a lot of progress in it. But it wasn't moving forward. Civilization was not moving forward. So the plague happened, and because of it, a renewal and the progress came much faster. Now, it's easy for us, looking back 600 years, to analyze and talk about this. If you are there in the middle of losing your whole family to the plague, there's no one could convince you that this was a positive development for humanity, right? So that's what the spirits are trying to say here, that sometimes these destructions are necessary for progress to happen, right? We had the tsunami in Asia 20 years ago, right? Or 30 years ago, 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. Yeah, 2018 and 2008, right? I think 2007, 2008. So it killed 300,000 people. It caused a lot of destruction. 20 years later, it's too early for us to understand the necessity. If we analyze it 100 years from now, or 200 years, we will look back and we will understand why it was needed for that region. Maybe we will understand. So these things normally happen because we are stuck somehow in some difficulties in progressing, right? So that's the way that the natural law causes the changes. So the destruction of the dinosaurs were important for humans to be able to exist here on Earth, right? So all these destructions that are that cause a lot of of pain and suffering can only be analyzed much later, but they are necessary for reasons that we have difficulty to understand at the time that they happen, and even sometimes much later, right? You talk about some famine that happens in places, right? Different places, and what's the objective of that, right? So if you look at the history of this country here, the Irish people that came here, which is a very big immigration group, they all came here because of famine in Ireland, right? They had a big famine in the big middle of the 19th century. Actually, it's interesting, the population of Ireland is the same almost 150 years later that it was the beginning of the famine, right? 8 million people, it was 7 at that time. So you can imagine. But why it happened? When we look, I still think it's too early, 150 years, but maybe 500 years from now, we look at the history of Ireland and the US, we understand why it was necessary for that to happen in Ireland. But are you going to say that to those that were losing loved ones or were forced to immigrate to a unknown land? And so it's always the problem of the balance, right? The necessity of these scourges and the consequences. These are things that are difficult to analyze, right? Okay, let's do one more, Philip. It's a long one, but a very long one. Danny, maybe we finish with your question and we go back to this next week because it's a very long one.
It's just a little comment. I think we can include the COVID, right? Pandemic.
Yeah.
As example.
Yes.
Like the whole world, like nobody was, because the Black Plague was in Europe, the famine in Ireland, but the COVID was the whole planet, right?
Yeah, if of course, it's too recent, and it's going to take us another 100 or 200 years to understand why it happened and the consequences or the reasons. But if you think about the Spanish plague, which was 100 years ago, right? It was the end of the First World War, right? Because of the Spanish flu, the First World War ended. So because they started dying more of the soldiers died more of the flu than of the war itself. So was that the reason? Maybe, we don't know, but we can pinpoint a reason. So maybe 100 years from now, we'll look back at COVID and understand why it happened and for what purpose it happened, right? But that's too early. 3 years, 2-3 years that since it happened, we really cannot understand. We can understand some of the benefits and some of the problems that it caused, right? But the why is too early, and we're not going to have it, not in our lifetime, right? Okay. All right, I think we stop here and we come back to this next week. So we have this Saturday a talk by Márcio Silva. The times have come at 11 a.m. Through the United States Spiritist Federation YouTube page. Starting Saturday, 1 week from this Saturday, November 15, we have the 27th Spiritist Week of the Tri-State. The subject of this week, this year, is going to be suicide prevention. We have talks throughout the different Spiritist centers in the Tri-State. The opening will be on the Brooklyn Library on November 15, a Saturday at 2:30 p.m. with talks by Peter Hayes and Edward Christie on faith and knowledge. And then you have in different spiritist centers throughout the region. We'll have the program is on our weekly email. You can see it there. Okay. This Sunday is the second Sunday of the month. We are going to study the book Jesus in the Home. Okay. Carol. Oh, sorry. Book club. Chapter 25 next week. We are not going to have it on Thanksgiving week on Wednesday 26. So we still have two Wednesdays of book club before Thanksgiving, right? And of course, we'll be closed on Thanksgiving also a Thursday, right? Okay, Carol, can you do our final prayer, please?
Sure. Thank you very much, John, for hosting our class this evening. And thank you, Philip, for reading for us tonight, and everyone who is here and participating. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together for our studies of the Spirit's Book, Chapter 6, The Law of Destruction. Transformative destruction is part of the natural law, and it is a means of renewal and improvement for living beings. Destruction also, or always, occurs at the right time. We have a need for self-preservation and helps us develop and learn morally and intellectually. Plagues and scourges speeds up the process. The eternal spirit is indestructible. In more advanced physical worlds, there is less need for destruction and more advanced knowledge to control or prevent destructive occurrences. Humans create imbalances regarding nature and animals. We are at the stage of finding true balance, and we are responsible for killing animals senselessly. However, our awareness is expanding. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center SGNY and all spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth and remind ourselves now to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.